the whole world at the moment is all excited about a very important date that's been prophesized by our local Aboriginal original elders. And the date is called the 21st of December 2020. And you can see the alignment of the twos here. So two's all about the unification of duality. And now this date has been in the mass consciousness. There's a lot of people excited about this, but there's two important dates. This date is in the Southern Hemisphere. We're in the Southern Hemisphere. That's our summer solstice. So this is a time of peak maximum energy. But our friends in the Northern Hemisphere, this is their winter solstice, which means this is their coldest time, a time to integrate. And the prophecies is all about that we all connect on the earth. The idea is that the Aboriginal elders are asking everyone to take their shoes off and connect to the earth, not to go to Uluru, to the sacred site, but where you are is your sacred site. And if all these people become focused on the worldwide grid, wherever you are on your nodal point, we can effectively bring in a new wave of consciousness. So this date is important because the whole world is coming together on this date. And so the actual time for this on the 21st it's 9 p.m. So the solstice is at 9 p.m. and the elders are asking us to be on the earth. But just a little bit later than that is that another synchronicity is that on this date, but an hour and a half at 10:30 p.m., there's two important planets called Saturn and Jupiter are coming into alignment. And Saturn and Jupiter come together every 20 years. So when we look at the life of John Lennon, so John Lennon was born in 1940. Saturn and Jupiter came together. And then they come together every 20 years. So when he was in 1960, that's when the Beatles formed. And then 20 years later, when Saturn and Jupiter came together, in 1980 he was shot. So John Lennon's whole life is really a memory of the cycles of Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn contraction, Jupiter expansion. When they come together, something special is happening on the planet. Now, why astrologers are excited about it is that this cycle hasn't been so accurate for 800 years. So let's go back to medieval times in the 12th century. So the last time when from the sun here, there's Saturn and Jupiter, the last time that they occulted each other, which means when we look at Saturn and Jupiter in the sky, they look like one light because one is exactly in front of the other. So when they occult and in an alignment, that is a very, very rare, precise alignment. And that hasn't happened for 800 years. So what's happening here, we're all celebrating at 10:30 at night the occulting of the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction. Now, there's also an important, there's a third synchronicity is that these dates of the 21st of December, the occulting of Saturn and Jupiter, also lines up with the our Aunt Minnie, Mace, M-A-C-E. So Aunt Minnie here is our local elder from Uluru, and she's saying that something really special has been prophesized for many, many decades, and it actually is happening around this time as well. And the reason why I love Aunt Minnie is that she talks about how an ancient Egyptian god called Shu, S-H-U, so Shu came into China to teach the meaning of the yin yang, because you know that yin yang is black and white cycles. So she's teaching that what's happening is that every 13,000 years there's an in-breath, and then after another 13,000 years, the breath of Brahma, there's another in and out cycle. So together, double 13,000 is 26,000 years. It's actually 25,920 years is what it's the time it takes for our whole solar system to do a complete cycle around another greater sun. So Aunty Mace saying that the other greater sun that we go around is called Alcyone, and Alcyone is part of the Pleiades, which is called the Seven Sisters. But in the ancient Egyptian times, the Seven Sisters were known as the Seven Hathors. The Hathors were like cow-eared goddesses, and that represents the seven major planets, visible planets in the Pleiades. So there's a lot of Egyptian overlapping knowledge that's coming into the Australian psyche at the moment. So our elders are saying that there's a huge Egyptian hieroglyphs and presence. So this god Shu came with his brother to near Gosford called Carryong Caves, where there's Egyptian hieroglyphs. And I think one got poisoned by a brown snake and died, and they buried this demigod called Shu here. And the reason why I'm talking about Shu is that for those of you who know me, my whole life's work is based on these magic squares. So this is called the Lo Shu from China. So this is Shu talking about the yin yang, teaching the ancient Chinese the meaning of the 13,000 year cycles, because what Aunty Mace is saying is that the prophecy for this date on the 21st of the 12th 2020 is that as we've been breathing out for 13,000 years and this cycle is ending, and on this date we're ready to take another in-breath. We're heading back to the universe. So by breathing in the next beginning of 13,000 years, Aunty Mace, Minnie Mace is saying that we're starting a new cycle, and she actually said it was 1948. So here in her notes she's saying that the dawning of Aquarius, that's what everyone's talking about, is really happening in 1948. But I would like to contribute my bit of knowledge that I really believe that the dawning of Aquarius that Minnie Mace is talking about really happened in 1962. So I'd like to give a little bit, I'd like to spend the next half of this lecture explaining my 40-year journey with these Super Aquarians. And they were born on the 4th and 5th of February 1962. So let's have a look. So here's the zodiac for Aquarius. I mean, this is the 12 signs, and this is the sector known as Aquarius. And this was the only time since 2,000 years when all the 7 planets, the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, not the outer planets, they're all within a 30-degree orb, because 12 times 30 is 360. So I'm going to mark these planets in. So we can see here, we got Mars. This is Aquarius. So we got Mars here at 2 degrees, and then Saturn at 3. Interesting, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction weren't really close, but Jupiter is here at 18 degrees. Then we've got the Sun and the Moon, and the Sun and the Moon means that this is a solar eclipse. The Sun and the Moon came together, so astronomers waited for 3 years to film the face of the Sun, because when it was eclipsed by the Moon, the astronomers were so excited that on this date, on the 4th and 5th of February, we could directly photograph the Sun. And then we've got Venus here, and Venus, and then Saturn, and Mars. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. So we've got 7 planets. And like I'm saying, this is so rare. It's all in Aquarius. And what's Aquarius about? It's ruled by Uranus, which is very eccentric. So Aquarius sign is all about us entering the space age. We're going into technology. And so the children that were born on this date, they're all 58 years old now. They're 58 in this year 2020. So I was on a journey where I kept meeting all these Super Aquarians. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So back to the zodiac here, we've got 7 planets in Aquarius. It happened in 1962 here. But the outer planet Neptune here, so here's Neptune. Neptune was 3 signs away in Scorpio. So Neptune was at a 90-degree angle to most of those planets. So that makes it Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. That's all about spirituality and mysticism. So it's the children that I've met born on this date have very interesting lives and very difficult challenges. And it's all air signs, so they're completely intuitive. So I learned sacred geometry, mathematics and astrology from a 15-year-old Super Aquarian called Mark Watman in Sydney at the time. So they just knew. They're so intuitive, they know all this stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit about Gene Dixon in a minute, but Ringo Starr. So 1962 was the time when Ringo Starr joined the Beatles band. One drummer couldn't make it. So Ringo Starr joined the Beatles, and on the 7th of February we had Eddie Izzard. He's one of my favourite British comedians. Eddie Izzard is amazing, completely enlightened. And then in February the 17th, about a week later, in Germany we had these 345 people die in the floods in Germany there, and 500,000 people were made homeless. So there was huge things happening in 1962. John F. Kennedy's stuff, the Sputnik going into space, so much stuff happened. So what I want to show you is just the amount of research that I've done. I've done all this research here. This is called the Super Aquarians 1962, the book of Super Aquarians. So this is done around 1983 onwards. So I was on a journey. Where I was fascinated, and I was meeting all these Super Aquarians. So this is the chart that I've drawn on the board with 7 planets in Aquarius. I'll just flick through these manuscripts. So this is Jean Dixon's prophecy. So she's saying that they're saying like this is like a second coming of Christ, but she doesn't talk about Christ. She says that she had a vision of someone like Akhenaten. So you can see this cone-headed god Akhenaten worshipping the sun. So Akhenaten and his tantric partner Nefertiti, she's not actually like this, she's more cone-headed just like her partner, but their child was found on the banks of the Nile, and this became the birth of Christ. So that's the story of Jean Dixon, who was a world famous psychic at the time. She used to read for all the presidents of the world. You can see here I was writing about the coming of a Super Aquarian festival. So I spent the whole year in 1983 gathering people to come to a festival. So this was actually 5 pages done as a scroll where I created a confluence, and I called it the Makarata. That's the name of the confluence or the coming together. So that was my journey. You can see here I collected all the dates of the Sydney Morning from the Sydney Morning Herald. The eclipse was coming. Astronomers were ready to record this. Such an exciting time. And here's the Egyptian connection. I drew this after a near-death experience. An Egyptian, I saw visions of Egypt and our Aboriginal elders connecting, and that's all about the Carry-On Caves. So that's from the work of Aunt Minnie Mace. I'd done some large murals based on the visions that I had of the Super Aquarians coming together. And this was another mural of Grace Jones that I did on the walls in the Blue Mountains. So a lot of notes on the birth, the second coming of Christ, Babaji, unfinished manuscripts. This was all airbrushed. So you can see I put so much work and devotion into explaining my vision of the Super Aquarian confluence, or the Makarata. So just wanted to show you the amount of work that I've done. Yeah, so what I would like to do is I'd like to conclude that what's happening on the planet right now is about, there's been so much duality and separation, and what's important is that we're all coming together. Whether or not this date is the door that opens the world together, the 21st of the 12th, that's not as important as what is important is people being focused, people reconnecting back to the earth, people recognizing that there is a sacred geometry around the planet, an energy field that connects us all. So if this is Uluru, this is Stonehenge, this is Pyramid, this is Byron Bay, these are all sacred sites. So the best thing that we can do is actually make our own little temple in our place where we are. And in fact, it's not about waiting for a sacred day, because every day is sacred. What's important is that your intention is focused, is pure, and that you really align yourself to the highest truth. And this is also a time that we give respect to all our elders before us who kept the memory alive of this ancient knowledge, and that the world now is in a time of repair. And as we heal ourselves, we're healing the world. Thank you.